Hello, Team Chesterfield. Thank you for joining us again for our latest installment in our video series, Town Halls, our virtual town halls on Project Restart. As we begin to re-enter our students into in-person instruction, we're excited that you've taken time out of your busy schedules tonight to join us. We have a variety of distinguished panelists up here on stage with us. We'll get to them in just a minute. During tonight's event, we expect to go through a brief presentation for those of you who were not up to speed on where we are now or who missed the school board presentation from last week. And then we have a number of questions and answered. While we asked for questions, you all delivered. Approximately 200 have already been pre-submitted, and we'll be looking at questions in our Facebook and YouTube Live sections as well. With that, before we get into our presentations, let's meet our panelists. Dr. Stefanko, would you like to start first?
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Stefanko. I'm one of the directors of elementary school leadership.
My name is Monique Booth, and I am also one of the directors of elementary school leadership.
I'm Dr. Rachel Fogelsong, and I am the third of three directors for elementary school leadership.
Good evening. I'm Josh Davis. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Chesterfield County Public Schools.
Good evening. My name is Eve Frank, and I'm the Coordinator of Early Childhood Services.
Good evening, Dr. Lisa High, Chief of Schools.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. You'll notice that we're keeping our masks on until it's our turn to answer a question. We are socially distanced, appropriate up here on stage. Everybody is 6 feet apart from nose to nose. So we are practicing what we preach in our schools, and we wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that as we got started. With that, I know that there's a lot of questions in place, so we'll go ahead and get started with a condensed version of the presentation provided to the school board on Tuesday, just to bring everybody up to speed. We'll start off with some brief acknowledgements. That is, first of all, we believe that face-to-face instruction is critically important to our students under normal circumstances, but especially now. And it's not just from an academic component, but from a social and emotional well-being component as well. We miss our students, and we want to get them back into our schools as quickly and as safely as possible. And we're excited that we began doing that last week with our Cohort number 1, some of our special education students, and you're here tonight to learn more about Cohort number 2, which will return to schools on October the 12th, next Monday. So during tonight's meeting, we'll go through a series of pieces of information before we get into questions. We want to talk about how we got to where we are right now. We want to talk about what Cohort number 2 is and how grade 3 was included in that cohort. We're going to talk a little bit about hybrid learning and why we think that that's the best model moving forward. We'll dip into transportation and to facilities, and lastly, we'll get into the Q&A section of tonight's agenda. And again, as I noted earlier, we have approximately 200 questions that were pre-submitted, and we'll be monitoring social media as well as we go along. Let's start off with a brief overview of our Public Health Committee. That is a committee of local public health and medical experts who have been guiding us along the way, helping us to determine when it is safe for students to re-enter schools in a face-to-face learning instruction. That Public Health Committee meets weekly and then advises the school board, which meets twice a month. On September 14th, the Public Health Committee reported that the public health metrics that they had been reviewing were such that it was finally time to begin moving back our identified cohorts of students back into in-person instruction. Cohort number 1, as we talked about a little bit earlier, included certain students with disabilities who returned to school on September 29th. That same night, the Public Health Committee provided its latest update to the school board, and based on publicly available health metrics, the committee recommended that Cohort number 2 was eligible to return to in-person instruction. And as we said earlier, Cohort number 2 is now scheduled to return to schools for face-to-face learning on October the 12th. Just a little bit about the data and the metrics that the Public Health Committee has been looking at. This first slide here looks at our demographic data within the Chesterfield County Health District, and you'll see that school-age children, those between the ages of 0 and 19, make up 15% of the positive COVID cases within the Chesterfield Health District, a relatively small amount. One of the 3 metrics that our committee has been using is a 7-day average of the number of cases within Chesterfield County. This slide looks at the number of cases per 100,000 residents, and as you can see, from October 9th through September 28th, we've been on a steady trend downward. Right now, Chesterfield is 8.3 per 100,000. That puts us in the yellow category, which is a good thing. We were much deeper into the orange earlier in the process. Our second metric that the Health Committee has been looking at is the positivity rate. That's a 7-day average of positive cases based on the number of tests given. And again, you can see the local health district, that's the Chesterfield Health District, has been progressing downward for the last month and a half. We're actually in the green category right now, which is a very good thing. Below 5%, we're actually at 4.5%, and this data is of September 29th. Our third and final metric that the Public Health Committee has been looking at is the number of hospitalizations within the central region, which includes the Chesterfield Health District. The central region expands from Hanover all the way down to the North Carolina border. And as you can see, the numbers have fluctuated a little bit on this category, and that's why we ultimately delayed cohort number 1 a first 2 weeks and did not send them back until last Monday. As you see now, though, we're at 2 weeks of slight downward trend. Again, a yellow, a very good thing. So when you look at the 3 metrics put together, you see that on September 14th, we had 2 yellows and an orange, and then on September 29th, we had 2 yellows and a green. And you see the reminder of the recommendations here in the bottom left. A green is considered full in-person learning or hybrid. Yellow is a hybrid or a virtual model, considering phased-in cohorts. And orange is virtual, considering phased-in cohorts or fully virtual. And we don't want to go back to red. So we're going to stick with orange and green moving forward to the best of our ability. So with that data in mind, on September the 19th, or the 29th, the Public Health Committee recommended to the school board that we continue with our student reentry plan and bring in the next cohort that was eligible. That is cohort number 2, and that was based on the yellow internal data metrics and the Virginia Department of Health recommendations that prioritize our pre-kindergarten through 3rd grade students, even when there is a moderate or substantial transmission within a local community. So now that we have this recommendation, what does it actually mean with the modifications that we've made? Well, on September 29th, our school board made a few tweaks to the process. They formalized the combination of cohort number 4. That would be moving all middle and high school students in on at the same time frame. We also moved into cohort number 2, our 3rd grade students. They originally were in cohort number 3, but that helped bring us into alignment with the Virginia Department of Health and the Virginia Department of Education recommendations. While we moved 3rd grade into cohort number 2, we actually moved our Career and Technical Center students into cohort number 3. Again, that aligned with the substantial transmission spread data designation within Chesterfield County. A couple of critical important points for calendar purposes. As we move forward with the October 12th reentry of cohort number 2 students, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, we will be aligning school start times with their normal starting schedule. We're also going to remove the early release day on October 16th. Families will get another message about that, a calendar reminder again tomorrow, but we are removing the early release day on October 16th. We no longer feel like that there's a need for 3 hours of professional learning time, since our teachers will have that opportunity every Wednesday in a hybrid environment. As we look at what the phased cohorts look like with the school board's revised action, again, we've already had level 1 or cohort number 1 students in our schools. Those are level 2 special education students, K through 12. Cohort 2 is now all of our students in cohort 1, along with our students in pre-K, kindergarten, and grades 1 through 3. Cohort number 3 will be all of our students in cohorts number 1 and 2, plus our students in 4th and 5th grade and our Career and Technical Center students. And then finally, cohort number 4 would be all of our students in cohorts 1 through 3, as well as our students in grades 6 through 12. Again, this is a look at the earliest possible return dates that exist if the data goes our way. If the public health metrics continue to remain stable or continue to progress in a positive, meaning good manner, we could be bringing back cohort number 3 students on October the 26th. Again, if the data continues to look favorable, cohort number 4 would be November 9th. Again, those are tentative, and they are based on they will be based on recommendations that are forthcoming from the Public Health Committee, but we wanted to give people time to start planning. So let's dig a little bit into cohort number 2. Again, cohort number 2 is our students in pre-kindergarten through 3rd grade, and they'll return to in-person hybrid learning on October the 12th. So what's the hybrid learning schedule look like? Well, our students who are in face-to-face learning will be in school 2 days a week, and they'll participate remotely, meaning at home, 3 days a week. Wednesday is a designated day for teacher planning, conferencing with students and/or parents. morning meeting times or advisory period times at the secondary level, and whatever professional learning or professional development might be scheduled to best meet the needs of our staff during this unique time. As we look at how this will break down in our schools, we will not, again, be bringing back every student at once. Our schools physically can't handle that based on the social distancing guidelines that we're following. So when we look at the breakdown of students in a hybrid model, we will be breaking them down into two groups at the elementary level and ultimately at the secondary level too. Our students with the last names of A through K will attend in person on Monday and Tuesday, with remote learning scheduled on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Our students with the last names of L through Z will attend school on Thursday and Friday, and they'll be learning remotely on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Again, Wednesday is a day for cleaning throughout our schools as we transition between groups of students. And I should note, and I'm sure Mr. Davis will hit on this later, we'll also be cleaning on Friday afternoons after our students leave for the weekend before our first group comes back on Monday. Families with students with multiple last names or who have split households in their families will be able to choose their preference of days to have students to report for in-person on the same day if they prefer. That way we're not splitting up families at the elementary level within cohorts. So what does a cohort hybrid model look like? Again, students participate in face-to-face instruction 2 days a week and they follow their normal daily schedule. Students participating remotely 3 days a week, they're going to follow an asynchronous learning model that allows them to check in with their classes. Students will join in the morning meetings with their class each morning. That's at the elementary level, again, through the pre-K through 3. They're going to have a greeting, a sharing of information. They'll go through their normal morning meeting, and then they'll engage in community building activities and share direction and message for the day. Students will engage synchronously. Those students learning from home will engage synchronously at another time during the school day as determined by the schedule that the teacher sets. And again, Wednesday is a day for cleaning in our schools, but students will be expected to participate in a morning meeting to set the learning objectives for that day. And again, that's for our pre-K through 3 as we start out into cohort number 2. The benefits of hybrid learning is it provides for a controlled reentry process that allows the school division to incorporate social distancing guidelines on the bus, in the classroom, and the hallways as they are provided by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Chesterfield Health District and the Virginia Department of Health. It also allows us to remain compliant with the VDH recommendations regarding which students should be prioritized in the return to in-person instruction, and it gives our staff members the chance to monitor progress and identify and solve challenges prior to other cohorts returning. This screen right here, albeit a little bit small, looks at the school operating times for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 schools. And again, starting on October 12th, when cohort number 2 returns, all students will follow a normal school schedule as listed on this slide. You will note that the students who are in a virtual learning environment, and we are offering a virtual learning environment at the elementary school level, those students will typically be done about 2 hours earlier with teachers available to consult with individual students and conference with parents during that time, office hours per se. Let's jump into transportation real quick. How do I know where I can find my students' routing? Well, great news. On Wednesday, eLink goes live, and we will have all of our bus routes posted on there. Parents will be getting more information about that in their email as well. You can access that routing information by logging in with your student's birth date and your student's student ID number. Or you can contact your child's school or the transportation department, and they'll be happy to help you out. But again, those bus routes will be available starting on Wednesday morning. In terms of transportation, some of the challenges that we're looking at is we will need all bus drivers at this time. Right now, with cohort number 1 in place, we're still able to deliver meals out into the community and provide support to other departments, and that will not be able to be done once cohort number 2 starts. So earlier today, you did get notification from our food services team that meals will be served at schools starting next week, and you should have gotten a listing of pickup times and areas where they can be picked up. We will have drivers on allowed leave. This is through the Federal CARES Act, or the Federal Coronavirus Response Act, and we do have some vacant positions. There continues to be a national bus driver shortage. We're not immune to that, and so we're in the process right now of looking at ways that we can solve that. Another big challenge is going to be the reduced capacity on our school buses. You know, during a normal school year, I'm not sure that there's a typical school year, but during a normal school year, buses will have 2 to 3 students per seat, depending on whether you're at the elementary or secondary level. However, to comply with the social distancing guidance that's been provided by the state and federal regulatory agencies, school divisions across the country are now, and in Virginia, are now left to grapple with what it means to place one person in a seat. And that's unless children are siblings. That means that there are going to be approximately 26 students per bus during the COVID-19 pandemic. Compare that to a normal school year where you would have 50 to 70 some students riding on a bus. So we're dealing with the challenges of reduced capacity on buses as well. How are we looking to mitigate these issues? Well, we're creating second waves and planned double backs to cover unfilled positions. That's an unfortunate reality of where we and many school divisions across the country are, again, during this national bus driver shortage. We are utilizing transportation office staff where appropriate to cover unfilled positions, and we're increasing our partnership with the DMV to administer the CDL Learner's Permit test. If you know somebody who would love to drive a bus driver, we would love to drive a bus, we would love to have you. And we'll get you through that process as quickly and as safely as we can. And you'll be a part of Team Chesterfield and probably, while our teachers may disagree, part of the most critical job that we have, getting our students to and from school safely. If they weren't able to get to school, they couldn't take advantage of the wonderful teachers we have. So if you'd like to join Team Chesterfield's Transportation Department, please, by all means, let us know. Some more solutions for this issue that we're facing, specifically the capacity piece. We have had a number of families who've asked how they can help us during this time. If a family can transport their student or their children to or from school this fall, we'd ask them to consider doing so. And we'd ask you to update your family information in our Parent View app so that we can begin to collect that information for the bus routes as we roll them out on Wednesday. I would point out also that our safety team is working with our school-based principals and our police department to identify roadways that are deemed a little harder to navigate than others to arrange for traffic support before and after school, as we anticipate that a number of families will take us up on that offer and will be bringing their children to school this year. As we look quickly at facilities, we have made a number of HVAC filter upgrades. You can see here on the screen as we talk about the MERV filters, everything that we've done for schools, and will continue to do through schools through mid-November. We've also purchased some HEPA air purifiers, easier for me to say, for trailers in our schools. We've flushed our boilers and our water systems, and we're replacing water fountains with bottle filling stations as well. We're very thankful, as I'm sure Mr. Davis will hit on a little bit later, for the federal funding, not only that the school division received, but that the Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors passed along to us to help with upgrades in our facilities as well. When you look at our schools, right now they look great. Our schools are clean, they're ready to host students. All of our buildings meet the APA 2 standard for cleanliness, which is what we strive for in our contract with our custodial vendors and with our day porters and building operations supervisors. And we're moving forward with that. We can't wait for everybody to get in and see our schools. When you look at the personal protective equipment that we've been distributing and that we're inventorying to make sure that we have enough for replacement, you can see on this slide some of the items that we've been ordering and that we have in schools, whether it's hand sanitizer stations or hand sanitizer bottles, gloves, masks, floor marking tape, signs. We've got a lot of signs on floors and on walls. And we're inventorying every Wednesday and every Friday for replenishment so that our schools are never behind. Our goal is, I think, a 3-month supply in place moving forward. Couple of real quick frequently asked questions that we got even in advance of this town hall, and then we'll jump into the ones that were submitted for tonight. What happens if the data gets worse? And if the positive cases and the positivity rate and the number of hospitalizations, what will our school division and other school divisions across the state have to do if that occurs? And as you see here, in consultation with the Virginia Department of Health, just as we would during a regular flu season, the superintendent will determine what is the point at which we would have to close an individual school or even the school division. We sincerely hope we don't get to that point, but if we do, we will take whatever caution is needed to make sure that our students and our staff members are kept as safe as possible. The good news, I guess, the silver lining is we've gotten really good at virtual learning, and so we know how to do that when we go back into it. Questions have also come up about what we will do if and when our students or staff test positive for COVID. And let's just be clear that if it's in the community, it will be in our schools. Our schools are a reflection of the community that we serve, and so eventually we will have student cases. We've already had some staff cases, and we are posting information about locations on our website, mychesterfieldschools.com. But if somebody, whether it's a staff member or a student, is diagnosed with COVID-19, they will be required to stay home for at least 10 days, and that is 10 days have passed since the symptoms first appeared. They have to have been 48 hours without a fever, and that's without fever-reducing medicine. Their respiratory symptoms have to have improved, and they have to have a written note from a licensed healthcare provider indicating a safe return. So we're going to monitor that very sincerely, and we know that we have a question later on that we've seen about how are we going to encourage parents to continue to follow that process. And finally, the last general question that we've gotten deals with communication, and they want to know, parents wanted to know how they will be updated and how our staff are being updated in the event that there is a positive case within their school. And again, we are posting all of this information on our website, mychesterfieldschools.com. If you click on the Project Restart landing button, then you will be taken to a page, and right there at the top is a listing of a link with all the cases that we've had to date. During cohort number 1, again, that's our special education students or certain special education students. If a student in school in that cohort tests positive for COVID, we will notify all the staff and the families in that facility at that time. A general school population will not be notified because of the small number of children in attendance, and that could make notification self-identifiable and violate student privacy rights. Again, that's during cohort number 1. Starting next Monday when cohort number 2 rolls in, and then ultimately through 3 and 4, once a student returns for in-person instruction, their school will notify all of the staff and all of the families if there is a positive case in that facility or on a bus that serves that school. The name of the individual infected will not be shared, and we will work directly with those, whether it's students or staff, regarding the need for quarantine. So it is in our best interest and in our community's best interest that we share information and we keep everybody informed. And you have our commitment tonight to continue to be as transparent as possible throughout this whole process. And that is the 15-second version of the 2-hour presentation that was given to our school board last Tuesday. And with that, we'll jump right into the questions that have been submitted. And we're going to roll to the top. And we're going to start off with Dr. Fogelsong, I believe. Based on the information provided at this town hall, will I be able to change my selection for my child if needed?
Sure. So we asked parents to make a decision of which option they wanted by October 1st so that schools would have an opportunity to create classrooms, new classes, and ensure that they were adequately staffed. So if a parent decides to change that option now, they can and they should work with their schools. There may be a delay in assigning a new classroom teacher as we ensure the availability of classroom space.
Dr. Stefanko, if you could just confirm, there is a virtual option for every elementary school student had they selected to take it.
Absolutely. There is a virtual option that's still in effect once hybrid starts. The students would follow the same thing that they're currently doing with the teacher that has been assigned to them.
Ms. Frank, what does that look like at the elementary level for our early childhood education students?
So because pre-K is not a mandated service, our students in pre-K will be attending hybrid only. We are unable to, unfortunately, offer a virtual option because we are grant funded and there are a lot of restrictions associated with the grants that we are receive. We need to keep in mind also that our students in pre-K are 4 years old, so we need the full attention of the teacher and the instructional assistant in the classroom while they're there.
I imagine class sizes, physical class sizes may play a role in this too.
Yes, absolutely. We're typically in a smaller classroom in the schools, so we have to keep in mind social distancing and just all of those safety components that are in place.
Dr. High, the next parent question is coming for you, and it's around the theme of flexibility and parent choice. This parent is concerned that families were forced to make a decision on an in-person or stay virtual decision with very limited information, and the reason, as Dr. Fogelsong just pointed out a little bit ago, was that we told them that we had to know how many students would remain virtual and how many would go in person for staffing allocation purposes. Can you expand a little bit on that?
And so when we originally did the parent survey, we used that as some preliminary data to help us start to make decisions. But the reason why we've asked for the October 1st deadline is so that we can look at staffing. And we found that we did have to switch the numbers in terms of virtual versus hybrid and look at our class size. We do have, through our standards of quality, the number of students that we can have in a class, so we want to make sure that we are able to maintain that PTR, and so we really need to have that information to be ensure we stay in compliance with the Virginia Department of Education.
Ms. Booth, the next question is coming to you. Are we going to have the option for keeping our kids virtual after the second 9 weeks? Where are we with that as a school division right now?
As we continue to explore the information from the health committee, we'll be able to look at that. But as of now, yes, virtual will continue to be an option for students.
Great, thank you. Any of the three of you for this one. How will teachers teach their students in the classroom with in-person learning and virtual if virtual learning instruction is already occupying so much of their time?
I think it's important to be able to distinguish the difference between virtual and the hybrid model. So when you have students, when the teacher has students in front of them in the classroom in the hybrid model for those 2 days, the teacher is not simultaneously teaching virtually to the students who are at home. There are 2 built-in check-in opportunities for the students who are in the hybrid model for the 3 days that they are remote learning. So they'll have that morning meeting time where it will be connected with their classroom virtually with the students who are in the face-to-face session with the teacher. And then at another point, based on the teacher's schedule, there will be another opportunity for the teacher to check and connect in with those students who are remote learning. And during that time, the students who are in the face-to-face setting could potentially be working in a small group or independently working at their seats while the teacher is checking in with the students at home. So I just think it's important to be able to distinguish the difference between hybrid, virtual, and remote learning.
Thank you. Next question continues down that path for a student who is at home. Can we provide an example of asynchronous learning opportunities? This parent says she's really wondering if the younger students will be able to do this on their own or if it will take considerable assistance from caregivers.
Sure. So when students are hybrid and they are in the school in person, we're really going to try to maximize that direct instruction and the direct instruction from the teacher as well as that guided practice, so that when students are home in their remote learning, those activities are designed to support independent tasks that will allow them to practice the skills that they've been taught in person. Some examples might be independent reading, word work opportunities. There might be videos from teachers that will then provide them the activity that they'll be working on that will support practice, application, and then even extension of the skills they're learning in person.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, we're going to get to you in just a minute. I got one more question for the elementary directors before we hop over to you. Dr. Stefanko, this parent is concerned that if they choose the virtual learning environment, their child might be left behind. Can you talk about how our teachers will be planning and what the pacing will look like moving forward?
Sure, that's the beauty of the Wednesdays, allowing our schools, the teachers to be together and to work in PLCs for that planning opportunity. When we have the asynchronous time, as Dr. Fogelsong said just a little bit earlier, that's the opportunity to build on those skills that were taught face-to-face. And so there could be project-based learning types of activities that expand the knowledge that has happened during the school day. So they're going to work very hard to stay within alignment between the children that are at home and the children that are face-to-face, and that's afforded through that wonderful planning opportunity that we have on Wednesdays.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Davis, we have a couple of parents who've written in about the school starting times. They must really like this 8:30 start time, not necessarily wanting to go back to either 7:45 or 9:25. Can you explain from a transportation perspective why we can't have all students starting at the same time when we return to in-person learning?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bullis. You know, we are just delighted that Cohort 2 is coming back, but we have to plan for Cohorts 3 and 4. So even though we could theoretically shift some start times, it would only be valid for a couple of weeks. So we need to, again, look forward to when all of our students are going to be in place and develop a transportation plan that will serve all of our tiers. So that's why we're going back to the original bell schedules that our schools have had in recent years, and there won't be any changes this year.
Thank you. I talked earlier about the requests that we've made for families to help us by taking their children to school if at all possible. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that discussion as well?
Well, thank you again, Mr. Bullis. We've certainly seen emails from folks that are very anxious to get their students back with face-to-face learning, have offered to provide that transportation, and frankly, we need you. Normally, I would say that school bus is the safest way to get to and from school. That will remain true. However, given the extremely limited capacity of our buses, we do need help from parents now. So if parents can, if they haven't already, go on to Parent View and indicate that they are able to drive their students, that would be very, very helpful for our route planning. I've seen some of the route sheets that's been developed by Dr. Fry's team, and it indicates, which students are virtual, so he knows he doesn't have to pick those up, and he doesn't even have to route the students once a parent indicates that they will be providing transportation. So if we can reduce that demand this school year in particular, we will do our best to transport those children who in fact do need transportation. And in no way am I discouraging those families that need that transportation due to their unique circumstances. If you need a bus, we're going to do our best to provide a bus and get your student to school on time and then bring them home in the afternoon.
Thank you. Dr. High, this next question is coming from you, and obviously this parent is very excited about the prospect of returning to school. They've asked, what is the metric to return 5 days for in-person instruction, and what is the target to meet that goal?
So again, Mr. Bullis spoke about the Public Health Committee, and we are taking their recommendations that they will bring to the school board. As he shared all of the metrics that they use to look at the guidelines, but we also follow the guidelines of the CDC and the Virginia Department of Health, as well as the executive order that's out there. And as things change with the Virginia Department of Ed, then we would make changes. But at this time, we're following the metrics, and we are not allowed to bring students back 5 days a week. When we can, we'll be happy to, because we know that having students face-to-face is the best for everyone.
And I think I would add on to that, Dr. High, that our school board has developed a very strong plan in collaboration with our superintendent and with senior staff. Our Project Restart plan has a lot of good qualities. We've made some tweaks when necessary based on changes, but our school board has been very steadfast about relying on the social distancing guidance and the face masks to make sure that our students are kept as safe as possible. Here's a new one that I hadn't heard until today, and I'll toss this one out to one of our 3 elementary directors. If my children are set to attend school on Thursday and Friday, are they able to sub in on a Monday or Tuesday if they have to miss Thursday and Friday?
So unfortunately, if they have to miss Thursday or Friday, they would just participate asynchronously. Schools have carefully created classes that are split and equal so that they can maintain the social distance and the health guidance, and we would not want an imbalance during the week.
Mr. Davis, I'm going to play tennis over to you. That actually could throw a little monkey wrench into our bus routes as well if students popped in on days that they weren't assigned.
Yeah, it certainly would. And again, every seat is precious. So we're going to provide that transportation on the days that your students are in fact scheduled to come to school. We ask that you try not to pull a fast one on our bus drivers, who are going to be doing the absolute best they can. They're going to pick up the students that are at the bus stop, and we just don't want to have any circumstances where there's a debate about whether or not a child should be getting on the bus. So stick to the assigned days, please, and we're going to do our best to provide the service that we can.
Thank you. Back over to our elementary school directors. Why can't we just stay in the virtual learning environment?
Well, as we've said multiple times, face-to-face is always the best way to teach our little ones developmentally. For our youngest ones, it's great to have them there right with us so that we can do small group instruction that is curtailed to their strengths and weaknesses. And so we want as much time with them as we can. So hybrid is our answer currently to how we can have more time with our little ones face-to-face.
Thank you. This parent's seeking some clarification on the 2 days that students will be learning from home while the other group is in school. Will the children at school, at home, have the same virtual schedule they've been having up until now and have some lessons with their teachers, or are they just having a morning meeting and another check-in? If we could just clarify that one more time.
Just to make sure it's clear, the difference between the kids who are face-to-face in the hybrid model versus those who are virtual. The students who keep the virtual option and are virtual 5 days a week will have an assigned teacher who will be with them 5 days a week. And the only way the schedule will adjust is it will align with your school start time. So instead of all virtual school schedule starting at 8:30 a.m., as Mr. Bullis mentioned earlier, it will align with the school start time. However, those children who are face-to-face and the students who are at home in the remote learning for the 3 days will have just those 2 check and connect opportunities with their teachers. But the students who remain in the full virtual option 5 days a week will have a assigned teacher who they will see every day, just like you have been seeing currently.
Thank you. I'm bouncing forth in between social media to make sure we pick up questions off of there as well. The next question for our elementary directors: what will learning in the classroom look like? Normally, our young children are able to move around the room, have centers, interact with their classmates. Will they be restricted to their desk? Will they be able to play games, use manipulatives? Are teachers able to pass out and collect papers? What does indoor and outdoor recess look like? This parent wants to know, what does school look like beyond going to the bus, going to the cafeteria? What does actual instruction look like?
So I'll start with this one, and if my colleagues want to jump in at any point. We want face-to-face instruction to look as much like school as possible, while we also follow all of the social distancing and health guidelines. And so there will be some differences, and obviously there won't be students gathered in small groups, but we will have manipulatives that students will use in their own individual manipulatives. We are going to continue to provide small group instruction following the social distancing. Students will go outside for recess. We've been given lots of guidance around what things they can do, such as soccer, hula hoops, and sidewalk chalk. It's a good time for students to get outside and have a break from their masks. Students will go into the cafeteria and get their lunches. We are really trying to make face-to-face instruction look like a pretty typical school day.
The one thing that I would add is they're going to have resource, just like our regular school day of any other year. They're going to have, the beautiful thing about elementary teachers are they can do a lot without having to have them right next to them within 6 feet. They're very gifted in engaging the students, and so while they may not be on the carpet learning, they will have opportunities. We hope to keep them as engaged as any normal school day.
Let's jump to masks real quick, because that was mentioned, and I know folks are interested in the mask break that recess might provide. Shannon is concerned that we don't make our desks look like a, to use her words, jail visitation area. What are we going to do with masks in schools, and why are they so critically important?
So everyone is expected to wear a mask during the school day. Students will have an opportunity at recess when they're outside, if they maintain that social distancing as expected, to remove their masks, to have somewhat of a mask break at that time. However, during the course of the school day, when they're inside of the building, that is not an option. Everyone is expected to wear a mask, all staff as well as all students. And to make it look like, she said a jail, kind of like that experience, that's not the idea. And as Dr. Stefanko mentioned, elementary teachers are super creative. And a lot of the classrooms we've had an opportunity to see set up and ready for students, they still are that warm, inviting, and caring environment. Yes, the desk may be a little bit separated, but students are still going to feel that welcoming environment. It will be different, but it will still be a successful place for them to learn.
Thank you. Dr. High, maybe you want to tackle this one. The individual health plans that are required if there's a medical condition that prohibits a child from being able to wear a face mask.
Yes, if there are health reasons why a student cannot wear a mask, we've asked that they get a note from their doctor and submit it to their school, and then we will follow the guidance from the doctor. We had a conversation today about if a face shield would work for the student, then we would offer that, as well as we are planning to have some desk shields that could go around the student to help with that 6 feet, although they're going to be 6 feet distance from each other, but just to help for some safety precautions. So we'll work with the principals and schools to make sure that parents and students are comfortable when they can't wear the mask. But it is a medical reason, and we do need a physician's note.
Thank you. Bounce back over to one of our elementary directors. This parent says that all resources available that they've seen have said that students returning to the hybrid model will stay with their current teacher. This was a huge factor for many parents when considering the option to return. I don't believe that's correct, if somebody would like to tackle that one.
So there may be cases that students will remain with their current teacher based on enrollment. However, we cannot guarantee that every student will, because we have a limited number of staffing that students are in now in virtually, and we need to bring some of those teachers back into the building to be homeroom teachers for our hybrid students. And so unfortunately, we can't guarantee that, and there may be changes as they're creating these new classes.
Okay. And Ms. Booth, you've been very diligent about helping us understand the difference between hybrid, virtual, and remote. This parent's seeking clarification that virtual is 5 days worth of instruction. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Just like it is now in this model, it's 5 days a week.
Thank you. Regina submitted that question. Thank you. I did want to show that we were paying attention to our friends on Facebook and YouTube as well. Not sure who wants this one, but this person's daughter is in 1st grade, and her last name, we'll say, starts with T. We won't give it out. Does that mean starting from the week of October 12th, she is supposed to come to school in person on just Thursdays and Fridays since her last name starts with T? And again, we'll start here, and then we'll come over here. How do I know how to get my child to school?
So the guidance, since it ends with a T, that would be the end of our alphabet, so that would be Thursday and Friday, and so they would have asynchronous work on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So that's correct. They would be there Thursday and Friday each week.
And if the parents or this family cannot provide transportation, we will have a seat assigned on a school bus, and the family can look through our e-link application for that bus information, which will become available on Wednesday. There's a description of that system on the transportation webpage to include a little video. And the parent view system also offers the transportation information. Or you could simply make a call to the student's school. But we look forward to transporting these students that start with the letter T on Thursdays and Fridays.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ms. Frank, I'm coming back to you in just a minute. I'm going to get back to you. Our elementary directors, will children be required to attend the morning virtual meeting, or can they just complete the assignments at their own pace during the day? We have 2 working parents, and to make it not essential to attend the morning meeting would help the school transition go more smoothly.
The morning meeting is not a required opportunity for students to connect, but it is a great opportunity for students to be able to join in, see their classmates, and see their teacher, and kind of get that guidance to set the mode for the work that they will do that day. However, we do understand that we do have working parents who this may be somewhat of a challenge for. So it is not something that will be held against the student. And they will have opportunities to engage in the asynchronous work. That will also count towards their attendance.
Ms. Frank, this parent wants to know, what will the check-in process look like for pre-K students?
So the check-in process will look the same as in K through 3rd. Morning meeting every day, using when kids at home learning asynchronously, they will log in with their teacher, see their friends, maybe sing some songs, read a book, and participate on the days that they're not in school. And We are looking at doing a checkpoint at the end of the day, or sometimes during the day. That may look different depending on the teacher. Some teachers may do a lunch bunch so that they would all eat lunch together. Some teachers may do a end of the day story time. So it's going to vary based on the teacher's choice with their classes.
Okay, I'm going to stay with you for this next question. Is there any, I imagine a number of parents feel this way, but are there any considerations to change pre-kindergarten services to 4 days a week? It's not fair to them to only have 2. Children this age need consistency and a lot more help, as these are the foundational years.
Yes, and unfortunately, there is not a choice right now. As I said earlier, our classrooms are typically smaller than most of the classroom in the elementary school. So in keeping with social distancing and health guidelines, and also recognizing that our students have never been in school, so we really need the full attention of our teachers. The maximum of students we will have would be 10 with a teacher and an assistant, and teaching them school, because as we recognize they've never been in school, we want the full attention of the staff in the classroom during those days.
Thank you. I'm going to come back over here to my left to our elementary directors. Jennifer has a question. If parents will be able to talk with the school about the potential of holding a child back this fall since they've been out of the classroom since March. Who should they approach about that conversation if that's a conversation they want to have?
I think if I understand, they should always start with the principal and have that conversation with the principal and discuss their concerns. The school can help talk about what the student needs are and what remediation or supports and services the school can provide, and come to an agreeable solution.
Okay. Dr. Stefanko, Ms. Booth, Tanisha asks, how can we expect a 4 or 5-year-old to keep their mask on all day? What types of things are we going to do to help in that regard? And I'm going to guess that one of the very first lessons that our teachers give is the importance, how to put it on properly, when to wear it, when to take it off.
So we're already experiencing that a little bit with our Cohort 1. So it's the first week or so that we're in school. It's going to be a lot of how do we get set in our routines and our procedures. And so it'll be lots of reminders and redirection. Like all of us, I think we have to be reminded at times to keep that mask on when we forget that we have it on. So it'll be just reinforcing the procedures of the day.
And I would jump in and say, parents, this is where we would definitely need your help. Because, as partners in your child's education, it starts at home also with practicing wearing that mask and reminding kids and getting them comfortable with wearing that mask. So we know it's a joint effort. And 4 and 5-year-olds, it's going to be a challenge, but I think if we work together, it's something that will kind of become second nature, like wearing a t-shirt.
Great, thank you. And again, we're all wearing, well, I'm not. Everybody else is wearing their masks. I'm doing a lot of the talking, so I've kept mine off. So being good role models up here on stage as well, and socially distanced as appropriate again. Jen asks on Facebook, if kids are full-time or virtual full-time, why can't they have the same freedoms kids going hybrid do? Maybe the parents want to not be tied down to a computer too. Let's explain what a virtual schedule looks like now and how that will be consistent in the future. Our children are not on a Chromebook for 6.5, 7 hours a day right now, are they?
No, and the virtual schedule was designed condensed specifically to not increase the screen time for our youngest learners. And there are times that teachers engage students synchronously through the Chromebooks, but there are also opportunities for students to have independent activities or asynchronous activities throughout that virtual learning.
Okay. Dr. Hyde, Mr. Davis, not sure which one of you want this one, but Roxana wants to know how often children will be tested in the school setting. They won't be, and let's talk a little bit about why, if we can.
Okay, students will not be tested in the school setting. We do ask that parents work with us and follow the checklist in the morning, which is checking the temperature, looking at the checklist to see if there are any of the symptoms like headache or coughing. And so that's one of the things that we hope that you will partner with us while they are in school. Our teachers and our administrators and Any support staff that we have in the building will also be diligent to make sure students are feeling okay, and if they are not feeling well, we will send them to the clinic to be checked, and then contact parents immediately if there is a reason to think that they may be having some COVID-19 symptoms.
Great. Tiffany has a question for our elementary directors. How will hybrid students have small groups?
Well, that's a great question. Our teachers are very creative, and so we'll be following social distancing. We have areas that you've seen, I'm sure, in the buildings that are tables that will bring children over. But once again, since our class sizes will be small on just 2 days, that affords us to have even smaller small groups. So if you're talking about only 2 to a table for a small group, that allows for social distancing. The teacher will have mask on as well as the students and a shield. So that will help with the guidelines for small group instruction.
Thank you. One more over here to my left. Rihanna wants to know, will the children returning during hybrid still get the same amount of education as those staying virtual?
Yeah, and I think Dr. Savanko touched on this earlier. The grade levels will work together to assure that the standards are covered and they're aligned, and that instruction that's provided face-to-face will be the same instruction that's provided virtually. And so covering the same standards, just in a little bit of a different format.
Mr. Davis, from the selection of pre-submitted questions, how can CCPS ensure we have enough PPE to keep staff and students safe when this is still an issue across our nation? What does the current PPE supply look like?
Of course, the personal protective equipment is very, very important for our students and staff, and we have anticipated these needs for quite a period of time. And we feel fortunate that the county has directed some of the federal government's assistance in the way of CARES funding to help us procure PPE. We've been ordering and receiving large supplies of it for at least 2 months. There are probably 15 to 20 respective what I'll call line items that we've been managing closely. Our goal is to have a supply as large as 3 months in all these categories. Are there some items that we've been procuring that have been a little more scarce? Yes, there are. And one of the things that we've set in motion is an inventory check. Our schools are going to complete an inventory of their backup supplies, not what's already out into the classrooms, but what's sitting in their closets, or what we jokingly refer to as an attic. We really don't have attics at schools, but we're going to get those reports on every Wednesday and Friday, and those reports will then trigger staff to submit tickets for reordering. We have a warehouse that is absolutely packed to the gills with many forms of PPE. We have masks for adults. We have masks for students. We have N95 masks for those that may have to deal with medical situations. We have isolation gowns for our special needs staff that might have to deal with bodily fluid events. We have face shields for our students, for our staff. I do want to clarify one thing about, can a student use a face shield instead of a mask? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. CDC has done some studies. There's some publications and articles that make it very clear that those face shields do not provide the same type of protection to the surroundings of an individual wearing a face shield without a mask. It provides some supplementary protection, and that's why we want our faculty to wear not only the mask but the face shields when they have close encounters with students. Gloves. Now, there's something that we've received a limited amount and we've shared with all of our schools. The price has gone up. There is a shortage. I've ordered 3 million of them, so we know that a good chunk of those are on the way, will be delivered, but there will be some items such as that we're going to have to, that we might not have that 3-month supply, but we're going to manage very, very carefully. Again, lengthy, long items. We think we've got everything that we need. Hand sanitizer stations have been deployed throughout the schools. They will need to be refilled because they're going to be used. The teachers have all been issued bottles in the individual classrooms, but strategic places in the hallways, in cafeterias, near bathrooms, hand sanitizer is in fact available. So we think we've gotten on top of the PPE train, and we're continuing to order, and we hope that we won't have any severe shortages, but we're going to follow it very closely. That inventory is going to be careful, and we will reorder as necessary and push our procurement team to deliver what we need so that all of our students and staff can be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Then this next group of questions, we're going to roll all into one. And I'm going to start over here, and then I'm going to bounce back to Ms. Frank, and then I'm going to come back over to here. And let me get them all out before we jump to answer, because there's times where I see all three of you reaching for your mics, like you're going to rush to see who's first. The scenario of questions tend to deal with the transition of students back into the school setting, specifically the new students who have never been in a school setting before. So the first question that we'll start over here with is going to be, is there an opportunity such as the Friday school supply drop-off during normal teacher work week? Is there an opportunity for students to come in and get used to the classroom setting? Or what is the teacher going to do during that first week to help get them set in that new learning environment? And to you, Ms. Frank, what are the early childhood education teachers going to do to get them acclimated to a setting that they've never been in before, when maybe they haven't been in a formal classroom setting before? So we'll start over here with transition.
Unfortunately, due to the turnaround time, there is not that opportunity to have the students actually come into the classroom like an open house in a traditional school year. However, teachers have been encouraged, and principals are working with their teachers to set up that opportunity within that first week of school. Kind of, it's like a restart in a sense, for those students, to welcome them into the classroom, to allow them to get to know and build that family and that culture within the classroom with their new classmates and with their new teacher, if the child has moved to another classroom. So those are things that schools are definitely taking into consideration, and being mindful of that, and knowing that instruction is important, learning is important, but also is the social emotional development of our students. So teachers and principals will definitely take that into consideration.
And I know that our teachers, or the pre-K teachers, were very excited because they got to meet most of their students face-to-face. We were able to offer visits to either to the classroom or outside the school for all of our pre-K students who were able to attend, to deliver Chromebooks, to meet their teachers, to meet the instructional assistant in the classroom. So all of the pre-K students have actually met their teachers face-to-face, which is great, and I know our pre-K teachers are so excited to welcome the students back. And of course, there will be a lot of activities surrounding, what do we do in the school environment, what do we do in the classroom, what do we do in the hallway. Like, we understand that all of this is new for our pre-K kids, and just like any other year, our teachers will spend a lot of time teaching them how to do school. So whether it's coming off the bus, walking from the car, walking in the hallway, all sorts of things, washing your hands properly. We'll work on all of that when the kids come to school.
And ladies, because this is the first time that we've had pre-K through 3 with Chromebooks, they need to bring them back and forth each day, home to school, especially on the days that they're working from home. What other school supplies might they be looking for that first week of school?
So I think schools will communicate specifically by class what school supplies will be needed. Some of those will be supplied in the classroom. Some of those they'll be asking parents to supply. Right off, I think one of the much earlier questions was about, will there be paper? And we do anticipate that there will be some type of take-home folder that a student might carry an assignment that would come back and forth, limiting the amount of touch so that we can remain safe and healthy.
Mr. Bullis,
Yes,
may I add
Absolutely.
something? So for pre-K, we are asking the students to actually keep their Chromebooks at home. We're going to do a lot of hands-on activities with manipulatives that will be sanitized in between each student, so that we are providing every material that so parents would not have to provide anything. We're actually providing backpacks for all the students. Teachers are right now developing orientation slides that they will be presenting to the families this week. Talking about all the questions that are coming through about supplies and what they're going to be doing, what the expectations are on the bus. So I just want to reassure parents that we will be providing all the supplies for pre-K.
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification. It is now 7:30. We have about 30 minutes left in our event this evening. I'm going to go back and recap a little bit about what we've learned and where people can find more information, and then we'll close out with about 30 minutes worth of last questions. And for those of you who were questioning whether or not we would have enough to get through, there are 393 comments and or questions on social media and 183 that were submitted. So we still have several hundred to get through in the next 30 minutes. But in all seriousness, anybody who is looking for information about where we are now and how we got here is encouraged to go to mychesterfieldschools.com. Right in the center of the landing page is a button that says Project Restart. If you click on that button, that will take you to the latest presentation and all of the other presentations that we've used. It will take you back all the way back to our virtual town halls that were held back in the summer. You can find information about schedules. You can find information about quarantine protocols, our health and safety plan, our overall Project Restart plan, just about everything that we hope that you will need to get your child ready as we return cohort number 2 to a hybrid learning model. I would point out, and I neglected to say this at the beginning, and I apologize for that, we will be doing these virtual town halls the week before the other 2 cohorts return, so you all will be back with us when we reintroduce cohort number 3. So for those of you who are posting questions on our social media accounts that are not getting answered about 4th and 5th grade and middle school and high school, we will be coming back to you at a later date. We wanted to make sure that we focused on the children, the 17,000-ish children who will be coming back to school next Monday, and that's our pre-K through 3. So again, all of our information is available on our website, and if you have questions, as you've been doing for the past several months, just email them into ccpsinfo@ccpsnet.net, and we'll be happy to respond to them as well. Let's jump back into our questions. In the hybrid model, if our child becomes ill and must quarantine and needs to switch back to virtual, will that change be supported by reverting back to her original virtual teacher, or will it be her hybrid teacher with no additional support?
Well, it's hard. I think we can definitely probably say that it will not be the virtual teacher that the child had prior to becoming hybrid, because in that setting, students will be provided asynchronous work to keep them connected to the learning within the hybrid class they are already assigned. So if a student falls ill or has to be quarantined, they will still remain connected to their hybrid teacher. And assignments and things will be provided, and they will still have those 2 check and connect opportunities to stay connected and engaged with learning.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, the only difference might be is if a whole class is quarantined. And if a whole class is quarantined and the teacher also has to go into quarantine, then they would have an opportunity to just shift the whole class into a virtual setting. And that would be something we would handle on a class-by-class, school-by-school basis.
And just for our population watching out in social media world, when we look to quarantine, we're working with the health department on contact tracing, and what they're looking for is any individual who had contact with an infected individual who is within 6 feet or closer for 15 minutes or longer with or without a face mask. So those are the people that the school division, and possibly the health department would be reaching out to in order to ask them to quarantine. That means that they don't come back to school for a number of days. Mr. Davis, Lindsay wants to know what are the cleaning procedures during the day, and I would add at night too, because we don't just clean during the day. Are children cleaning their own desks? What about bathrooms? Has the plexiglass been installed in the bathrooms? Where are we with that type of thing?
Well, there's several questions there, and let me maybe tackle them in reverse order. We did have a recommendation from risk management that we install some additional partitions in the restrooms between the male urinals and the sinks where those partitions did not exist. We have a major maintenance project to do that. It will be approximately 1,300 pieces. We have a bid that's gone out and a contractor that's going to start working on it. Obviously, that work would not be complete before our students come back into the school, but it will be underway and hopefully completed in a matter of a few months. More relevant, or even more relevant, is the cleaning every day. The major touch surfaces, doorknobs, handles, common areas, they will be cleaned 3 or 4 times every day by first our day porter staff that works during the day while school is in session, and then again in the evening by our contracted custodians. In regards to desk, in the classroom, they will be cleaned at least twice a day. That includes the evening cleaning. If there's any type of meals that are prepared or consumed on a desk, then there certainly would be cleaning of that desk actually before and after the meal's consumed. So desks are very, very important. When we get to our other cohorts, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but for our elementary students, at least twice a day, plus any time that there would be food that's consumed.
Thank you. Dr. Hyde, Dr. Fogelsong, I'll toss this one out there to you all, and we'll start with the teachable moment aspect. A parent wants to know what happens to students who won't or don't keep their masks on.
Well, the teacher would work with the student to encourage them to keep on their masks. We would do as we would do normally in a classroom. If a student is not following directions, we remind them, we ask them, we contact parents. But we will, if we need to follow discipline measures, then we would, but that would be a last resort. It's really talking to the student and explaining why we're asking them to do what they're doing, and we make sure that we contact parents to make sure you're a part of working through this concern.
Good. Okay. I did want to correct one piece of information that's been put out there in the social media chat. Somebody has suggested that every elementary school has over 18 cases of COVID already. That is not accurate. Again, if you want to find out where it is in terms of our staff at this point, we're being very transparent. It's on our Chesterfield School Division website, mychesterfieldschools.com. Again, you click on the Project Restart button, and at the top of that page, you'll be taken to a listing of all the schools where there has been a confirmed case, and we will keep that page updated. Our plan is to update that page every morning by 10 o'clock with the news from the past day. Again, communication will be forthcoming once students return to school, as we do want to keep parents engaged and informed. The next question has to do with staff and wearing their masks as well. And I don't know whether to look to Dr. High or to our directors. What type of PPE will our teachers have? I understand that they're working behind a 6-foot, I won't say wall, but a 6-foot distance that they have to stay behind. What happens when they break that distance to go out and work individually with students?
The teachers will wear their mask at all times. There is a 6-foot semicircle that we have drafted out on the front of the room where most of the teaching will happen, where the smart board is or where the whiteboard is for the teachers. If they go past that 6-foot arch, then they're going to add the face shield while keeping the mask on for protection for themselves and for the children. So that front arc is where most of the time they'll be teaching.
Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. We'll go to the next one, and Mr. Davis, Dr. High, want to go back and revisit a question from earlier. Can someone please explain why our children can't go back for 5 days? The school division keeps repeating this to us, but we can't find that ruling anywhere. It's probably more about the social distancing guidelines and our school board's desire to maintain those.
Mr. Bullis said it exactly correct. It is about the social distancing and knowing that the size of our classroom, in order to maintain the 6 feet distance, we can only have a certain number of kids in, and it's anywhere from 12 to 15, maybe a few more if it's a larger classroom. But in order to follow those social distancing guidelines, we have to keep it at that 50%. And we made the choice earlier on this summer to break it down by last names, A to K and L to Z, to be able to have that 50%. And schools have been working to make sure that even with those breakdown, we're close to being divided equally for our students coming to school on the Monday, Tuesday versus the Thursday, Friday.
Back to this side of the room. This parent wants to know, well, she wants my child to, I want my child to stay with their current teacher. Why was there no option on the survey to say decision on return to school predicated on a teacher's decision? Let's go back and one more time for those who were late joining us, talk about why we had to allocate staffing when we did.
Each school are provided a certain number of teachers based off of their enrollment. So if we were to leave every child with their current teacher, there would not be that equal divide or that opportunity to have the class sizes based off of our standards of quality and the PTR we have to have. So it's not that, we would of course love to be able to keep every child with the teacher who they've had an opportunity to develop that relationship with, but at the same time we have to make sure that we are following those standards and making sure that the class sizes are appropriate to provide that quality instruction.
Thank you. And I'm gonna, go ahead.
And I was just saying earlier, there was a question that asked if teachers had the choice to choose whether they can be hybrid or virtual. And unfortunately, we don't have that opportunity because based on what students have or parents have selected for their student, we have to be able to provide that level of teachers for that particular area. So that's another reason why a teacher may have to move forward. And the second question was, will teachers who have a documented medical reason, will they be able to be virtual? We are looking at those teachers who have that first to be our first virtual teachers, and then we move forward if there is a need for additional virtual teachers.
Thank you. I'm going to come to both sides this time real quick, and we're going to revisit a previous discussion and go probably a little deeper. We talked about the transition period. We saw last week when our Cohort number 1 students came back, we saw some staff out with cheerleading type of paraphernalia, greeting our kids and showing how excited they were to have them back. Another parent, Courtney, is concerned about how will kindergartners be shown where to go on the first day of school. Obviously, that's a new scenario setting for everybody, and you got to keep that 6-foot distance. There's certain times when you get off the bus, you can't congregate with friends like we usually do. How are we going to get kindergartners to their school safely, and how are we going to get early childhood education students to their school, to their classroom safely?
And I may defer to Dr. High as well, but it is my understanding that some of us will be in the schools helping with a mask and a shield, like we did for Cohort 1, helping get the students off the bus or get the students in the car. Principals are working very hard to work on all of those things that I can't even wrap my head around, but that will be put in place. As I said, the staff will be on hand. It'll be all hands on deck, and we will cheer for our kids because we're so excited that they're coming back.
Yeah, I would just echo and expand on a little bit. At elementary, it's what we do. It is what we know. This is, for many of our kids, their first time in a school setting, and even under these unusual circumstances, teachers have an incredible way of making it fun and exciting and engaging, and it will be all hands on, hands off, hands on. But all staff there helping to guide students and make the experience as welcoming and as exciting as any first day of school would be.
Great. Dr. High, this question has to do with the hybrid learning and time on technology, and I think it's going to be true that every student logging on through their login credentials actually goes through our network. But this parent is concerned that students are spending more time on CCPS Chromebooks from home during the workday. Website filtering at home is ineffective as more websites use HTTPS, which bypasses home network filtering. What are we doing to make sure that our children are safe in the current virtual learning environment and then when they're either on the continuing virtual or the hybrid virtual?
So whenever our students log into our ccps.net, they go to our filtering system to filter out the sites that they are attempting to go to. So it may take a few minutes more for it to actually go to the filter and give it the okay. It's with identifying that this student should be able to access this particular program or access this particular site. So it takes a few minutes, but everything does still go to our filtering system. It doesn't have to go through like they were when they were in school, in the school building, but there is a interface with our firewall.
Dr. I, I'm going to stay with you for the next one. Since parents are being given the option to send their children back to school, why are teachers not being given that same choice?
The teachers have to be there for the students who are in face-to-face, as well as if families have chose to keep students virtual, then we need to have virtual. And depending on what those numbers are, we have asked for it to come in by October 1st. So our principals have been planning up to October 1st and are continuing to plan to make sure that we have the staff in the right place that we need them. And we, as much as we can, we will allow teachers to, if they have a reason that they need to stay virtual, we'll look at them first, as I stated before. But we just have to, we have a certain number of staff members, and we have a number of kids who've chosen one method or the other, or one option or the other, and we have to fulfill that need.
Thank you, Dr. High. Elementary directors, as we were talking about the morning meeting earlier, I may have slipped up and talked about some of the activities they might do, and I or somebody else referenced singing. Right now, there's no singing. We've been advised that air droplets are not good, and so we're not going to be singing. We're not going to be doing a variety of other things, but that question begets the next question. What are we doing about resources like music, like art, that type of thing?
So resource for the students who are in the hybrid model will look like a push-in, where the art teacher will come into the general education classroom and provide that service. Students who are in the virtual model will continue to have virtual resource or a synchronous resource like they are currently having now. The students who are at home for the 3 days in the hybrid model remotely will be provided with asynchronous tasks that will align with the face-to-face resource instruction that they received earlier in the week, or throughout the, if they're, depending on which resource class it is, the resource teachers will be providing activities for those students to work with at home.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, Laurel asks, is the CDC list of recalled hand sanitizer brands going to be regularly checked so the products used in school are confirmed safe?
Indeed. We were aware of some of those hand sanitizers that had been determined not to be appropriate a couple of months ago. So we are buying products that are certainly deemed safe and certified by CDC and FDA. So again, we've got a standard product that we're getting from a great vendor, and we're not going to disrupt that in any way to buy a cheap and product that is inappropriate for our students. So again, we're going to keep them safe with good hand sanitizer.
Well, I've got your mic on. We've got a couple of folks who weren't with us when we started at 6:30 who just want us to, they've asked about cleaning. Can you just quickly revisit what we're going to be doing over the course of a day, over the course of a week?
Sure. Let's talk about two groups that are going to be doing cleaning. And we'll start with the bus drivers. How about that? I didn't mention them earlier. They're going to start the day with a clean bus, because after they're done in the afternoon, they will thoroughly disinfect their bus. They will do their morning operations, thoroughly disinfect that bus, and then again in the afternoon. At our schools, our day porters, those are our CCPS employees that serve and work in our schools, will be there from before students arrive till after students depart. There may be some split shifts, especially on Friday when we have some more concentrated cleaning after that cohort of, I guess it's not a cohort, but that group of students departs on Friday afternoons. The building operations supervisor provides supervision, helps fill in the gaps. I'm sure is going to be wielding some of the cleaning devices, him or herself. We know that our classroom teachers will participate as needed, especially if there's a spill or something in the classroom. One thing I neglected to mention earlier about PPE and supplies is wipes. We have both disinfecting and sanitizing wipes that are being supplied to each classroom, in addition to the spray bottles with cleansers. But again, the great majority of our cleaning will be done by the day porters, and then in the evening by our contracted custodial firms. Those folks have done a fine job. There have been a couple in recent months that have been relieved of their duties, but we've put in companies that are doing fine work and have demonstrated great competency. So we're going to stay on top of cleaning each and every day, each and every room, bathroom, high-touch surfaces, and desk at schools.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Coming back to this side of the room, there's natural angst as we transition and change. That same angst existed when we started in virtual. There were questions about whether we could do virtual. In large part, virtual has been very successful. We now have questions about the angst associated with coming back, and how are our outstanding teachers going to keep kids apart? The natural inclination is to congregate. How are we going to enforce, monitor, teach social distancing in the schools, at recess, on the bus?
We're going to do just what you said. Just as the students come in, it will be a priority for teachers to teach those routines and those procedures from day one. We've got guidance in the hallways to help remind students. Their desks are already placed. Everything about the first few days of school will be about reminders and teaching kids the proper procedures. We know this is new, but they know it's happening. And so I think the teachers are amazing at helping get kids used to and comfortable with their routines and procedures at school.
Okay. Mr. Davis, how about on buses? That's the first and last touch point of the day. We're going to keep them safe on there too.
Yes, the guidance that we're following is to... All right, I did well about 12 times, but I missed that one. So we're back on mic. And 1 student per seat on the school bus. So that'll be for most school buses, 26 students. Siblings, family members that live together can in fact sit together. And looking at one of those route sheets recently, about 41 kids, that included 3 sibling pairs and a sibling trio. And so we'll take advantage of those opportunities. Hopefully the brothers and sisters will get along on the bus seat next to each other. We've identified a checkerboard pattern on the buses, so the children will see a piece of tape where they are supposed to sit so that they won't be directly across the aisle from one another. There'll be maybe a child next to the window with a child across from them that's at the aisle. So again, our bus drivers will have those seats well marked. They'll give directions. After the first week or maybe 2, we're hopefully going to have assigned seats in place too, so that we'll have a good routine and that there'll be seats for safe seats that are well distanced for those of our students that will be riding the school bus.
Thank you for bringing up that point, and I'll pass it back over to here. Assigned seating isn't unusual at the elementary level, perhaps maybe on the bus, but in the cafeteria, if they get into the cafeteria, in the classroom, on the bus, what does assigned seating allow us to do a better job with?
The assigned seating provides an opportunity to contact trace if for some reason there was a student or staff member who fell ill. But also it helps the students know their safe space and where their area is, as well as to help the teachers and the staff to be able to identify those clearly. Students at the elementary level are accustomed to assigned seats in the cafeteria, in their classroom, on the school bus. So this will not be anything different than what they're used to in a typical school year.
Thank you. Dr. Hyde, next question goes to you. Originally, CCPS decided the first 9 weeks would be virtual. What changed to push kids to go to hybrid? And I think you may want to just clarify that we never put a timeline on this from the beginning, which kind of set us apart from some others.
Yeah, all along, we talked about making sure that we would follow the Public Health Committee's recommendations and to bring cohorts back as soon as we can, or as soon as it was safe to bring them back. And based on the information that's come from the Public Health, we are at a point where we can bring back K to 3 or pre-K to 3. And this is in alignment with the guidance that we've had from our Virginia Department of Education, which is why we did add 3rd grade to, because we were able to, based on that guidance from the Virginia Department of Ed.
So the guidance that we had seen throughout indicated third grade should be one of the prioritized groups. It sounds like we originally went pre-K through 2 and then 3rd through 5th in order to really split the grade levels in half and try and get 50-50.
Yeah, we were originally trying to do 50-50, but, you know, communication that we received from families based on what the Public Health Committee said, we realized that we could do pre-K through 3, and that we would still be within that guidance and be able to still maintain the 50% in our schools.
Great, thank you. And just to jump ahead and look ahead and start preparing, on the 13th of October, our school board meets next. They will receive a presentation from our health committee. On the clock, so to speak, is cohort number 3. If the data continues to look good, cohort number 3 could come back on October 26th. Cohort number 3 includes?
Cohort number 3 would include 4th and 5th grade, as well as our students who are in career technical education. At the school board meeting next week, we will give more details about what that could look like if the data stays where it needs to be for us to bring back that next cohort.
We have a parent who's making sure that we're checking even the minute details that may exist only 6 times a year or so. Interested in knowing what we're going to be doing about their drills that our students are supposed to have, and how do you do socially distanced fire drills, bus drills, but earthquake drills, that type of thing. That's something we've thought of and are looking at as well, I assume.
Yes, our principals are so diligent. They've been planning for every scenario there is. So once children start coming back to school, so even with cohort 1 that's already there, we do start our drill preparedness. So fire drills will start, but we'll do the same thing that we've talked about with everything else. It's really about procedures, safety. That's what we do. Our elementary teachers are masterful at teaching their little ones how to proceed with different kind of safety procedures. So those will start as soon as they come back.
So we have about 3 minutes. We'll begin to wrap up, and I'm going to let anybody have a part of this statement that wants to. Thank you to Ms. Rogers, who said most kids adjust really quickly. We as parents have to show them that it's going to work. If we let them see us panic, they will panic. What advice do we have to parents over the next week as they prepare their students pre-K through 3 to return to school for the first time since mid-March?
I'll start by saying we need to give each other grace. Our staff will give families grace, and we ask for the same thing from our families to give our staff, school staff, grace as well. This is what we do. I mean, I'm an elementary person, and so I know that there is no question that once they get back in, our teachers will do a wonderful job, and our administrators will be there to support them, and our central office staff will also be there to support them. We will be sending out a message for all of our central office staff to be out next week in the schools to support in any way that we can. So I would just say, trust us. We want the same that you want for your kids while you had them at home. We want the same for them to be safe and happy when they're here in school.
Yeah, and I would say we know families are anxious. Partner, work with your schools. You know, if you have questions, ask your teachers, ask your principals. We were anxious before we started virtual, and that turned out remarkably well, and we believe this will as well.
Anybody else? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've done remarkably well. You didn't know what questions necessarily were coming your way when we opened it up. Two-way communication through social media channels, anything can be asked, and you all did a wonderful job. Now that we're past it, we can tell you that approximately 20,000 people-ish at some point tonight watched or tuned in to parts of this. We hope that the community continues to reach out and stay informed. If you have questions, start with your teacher and your principal. If you continue to have questions, reach out to the school division. There's numerous emails, including ccpsinfo@ccpsnet.net. We're here to help. We want your children to have as smooth a transition as they possibly can. We're going to do everything in our power, everything within our reason to keep them safe while they're with us, and we can't wait to see cohort number 2 back in our schools on Monday. Thank you again to our panel, and thank you to our families for joining us tonight. Have a great night, and as always, thank you for your support of Chesterfield County Public Schools. Have a great evening.